Hello, and welcome to Season 1, Race 23 of my F1 23 My Team Career Mode. And we are here in Abu Dhabi for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the race that will decide the championship with 6 drivers, yes, 6 drivers mathematically eligible to win the championship coming into this race. As far as qualifying goes, qualifying on pole, teammate, a pretty decent effort in 18th. But main thing I want to go over here is the championship scenarios. So, of course, the driver standings: Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, level on points going into this race. So for those three, the scenario is pretty simple. Whoever finishes ahead of the other will win the Drivers' Championship. Pretty straightforward. Then in 4th place you have Carlos Sainz, who is 7 points out of the lead. Now essentially, Sainz, all he has to do to win the championship is outscore Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell by at least 7 points. Now, in terms of how they divvy out the points from 1st to 10th, the easiest way for Carlos to do that is to win the race, and either get the fastest lap or win the race and have Verstappen, Leclerc, and Russell finishing 3rd or worse. If that happens, he wins the championship. Gets a little there's more different scenarios based on where Sainz could finish, but essentially he has to outscore the top 3 by at least 7 points. So he needs a really strong race. And then you do have Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton, who are mathematically, technically, still alive in the championship, though their hopes of winning it are pretty slim. Perez, he can win the race. And actually, there's a scenario where Perez can win the championship if he wins the race, and then the top 4 score. I guess what is it? Basically, I'm trying to think. So Perez can win and gets 25 points, and then to avoid any tiebreakers, he needs to have the top 4 get no more than 1 point between them. So that essentially is what the scenario is for Perez. He basically needs to win out. Win the race. Doesn't necessarily need the fastest lap, but he just needs to win, and he needs to have the bottom drivers score little if any points. Lewis Hamilton was effectively eliminated in Las Vegas after the crash on Las Vegas Boulevard late in the race when he tried to pass me. But his scenario is essentially he needs to win the race, get the fastest lap, and the top 5 in front of him cannot score any points. That is the only scenario that Lewis Hamilton can win the championship, and I don't think that scenario is very likely. So there's that. The Constructors' Championship is still up for grabs. Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes. I think with how the point situation is here, I think it's going to be very tough for Ferrari to lose it, especially if both drivers are starting in the points and finish the points. I think it's going to be very hard for either Red Bull or Mercedes to overtake them unless either team finishes 1-2. So I would say, regardless of what happens on the driver's side, I think Ferrari is definitely the favorites to win the Constructors' Championship, but we'll see how they do in the race. So the actual starting lineup, of course, I won the poll. In terms of the championship contenders, Charles Leclerc, in terms of, first of all, the people who are tied at the top of the standings for the lead, Leclerc starting 2nd, Russell starting 4th, and Verstappen is starting 7th. So right out of the gate, Leclerc has the advantage of those 3. Of course, you do have Hamilton and Perez in there, but again, they need Russell. They need to win the race while Leclerc, Russell, and Verstappen don't score any points at all. So they're doing what they can, but their road's pretty hard. And then Carlos Sainz, P8, he probably has an equally hard job because he has to, pass. He's basically got all the championship contenders in front of him on the grid. So that's where things stand. And of course, grid penalties could be a factor. We still have to wait and see that. It's still kind of annoying to me that the game doesn't have the AI take their grid penalties more strategically. Particularly the top teams. I think that's a little, but not a bug, but it's a feature that is kind of annoying, particularly when there's a title fight going on. I mean, it would be cool if the AI or if the game was able to recognize, hey, there's a close title fight going on, or at least realize, hey, it's better to take the grid penalties for the component changes at like other points in the season. All right. Weather dry, no worries there. We have adapted all the durability parts that were under threat due to the regulation change, so everything there is pretty much safe and secure. Currently 5th in the vehicle performance chart, and then we're just going to save up the resource points for Season 2 and go from there. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I have no idea how it's going to work out. As far as the championship battle goes, then we're just going to try and go and get the best result possible and close out the season on a good note. So, knock on wood there. Yeah, let's dive into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and let's see who, or if any, grid penalties potentially impact the race for the championship.
So here we are, ready to go racing for one final time this year. Another season of victories, controversies and rivalries lies in our wake. And just one challenge remains, here in the United Arab Emirates, on a circuit that made its spectacular debut back in 2009. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. We have 16 corners here at Yas Marina Circuit, 7 to the right and 9 to the left. It's a total lap distance of 3.28 miles, 2 long straights and overtaking opportunities throughout the lap. And we expect average speeds of around 123 miles per hour. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Golden Boy lines up on pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Norris, Perez, Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Hamilton, Ocon, Gasly, Bottas, Joe, Sainz, Albon, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Magnussen, De Vries, Drugovich, and Logan Sargent. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. And alongside me once again for coverage of today's race is none other than the great Anthony Davidson.
The key now will be to keep in the right mindset. We've seen time and again that things go wrong if you just try and do the minimum. Not necessarily because of the pressure, but because it's different to your usual approach. They'll need to avoid that and stay focused today.
All right. So, The grid penalty really only, in terms of the serious title contenders, really impacted only Carlos Sainz, starting back in 14th, so he has an incredibly hard job ahead of him. Lewis Hamilton also got grid penalty, but like I said, while he is mathematically still alive for the championship, his actual chances of winning it are very, 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 very slim. So it's actually led to a more interesting scenario up front because you have Leclerc in second, Russell in third, and Verstappen in sixth. So this is going to be a real fight for the championship.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Giuseppe Farina, who was driving for Alfa Romeo, took the championship after 3 of the 7 races held that season. Juan Manuel Fangio also took 3 victories but lost out points after having retired from the other 3 races he entered. Hello to everyone here and welcome, and a special shout out to our VIP guests, Lars Hammer and Arthur Jackman, affectionately known as the Jackhammer.
drag reduction system. Gap to your teammate behind is 17.3 seconds. gap behind us is 4.9 seconds. We're in first position, front of the pack. Norris behind. Okay, the gap behind is 4.9 seconds. They're on old mediums. Your pit window opens in 5 laps time. 5 laps. No tyre concerns at the moment, just focus on the driving. Here's some information on Russell for you. They seem to have an issue. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 29.0 seconds. Approaching the pit window now, and you're going to be on hards next time. Our gap behind is 4.6 seconds. Okay, we can take you this lap. Affirmative, medium tyres at the next stop. Understood. Stopping this lap. Affirmative. Medium tyres at the next stop. Caution, caution. Green flag.
And it looks like the pit crew are out in the lane and ready to perform their magic on the car. They're going to be aiming to achieve the fastest pit stop time possible.
All right, we'll be doing one more stop today. One stop left in this strategy. P10, you're currently in P10. Okay, Sainz is ahead of you. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 4.0 seconds. They're on old mediums. Zhu behind. Okay, so the gap to the car. And that's us in 10th position. Sainz ahead. Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 4.0 seconds. They're on old mediums. Okay, Zhu's behind you now. Okay, push, push. Gap to the car behind. 1.5 seconds. They're on old mediums. Okay, so gap to the leader is 16.7 seconds. Your pit window opens in 8 laps time. Okay, 17 laps to go now. sat in P8, well done. Piastri's ahead of you, less than a second separates you. They're on old mediums. Gasly behind. Okay, the gap is less than a second. They're on old mediums. Our gap to first place is 11.3 seconds. Your pit window will be open in 7 laps time. All right, 16 laps to go. Okay, roger that. Soft tyres at the next pit stop. approaching the pit window, you're going to be on softs. Okay, the safety car is out. Safety car is out. We need to form up at reduced pace. Keep a close eye on that delta time. Make sure to keep it positive. There's a new strategy available on the MFD. Copy. Confirmed. We'll receive you at the end of this lap. Okay, roger that. Soft tyres at the next pit stop. Okay, Felipe's in the pit lane. Felipe in the pits.
And it looks like the pit crew are out in the lane and ready to perform their magic on the car. They're going to be aiming to achieve the fastest pit stop time possible. I think there's an error with the attachment of one of the front wheels. Oh, they'll be disappointed here.
That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. Okay, let's get ready to go racing again. The safety car is in this lap. When the field accelerates, remember there's no overtaking until the timing line. Safety car in this lap. Okay, clear. Nice. Are you okay? That was a nasty hit. Turn the engine off and wait for the marshals. Come on, you can win that place back. DRS has been enabled. DRS is now enabled. There's 5 laps of fuel remaining. Okay, mate, this is the final lap of the race. Final lap. Yes, mate, that's it. The season's over, and what a season it's been. Really great effort from you. The whole team is really proud of you, so thank you for a fantastic effort. See you back in the pit lane.
And so the celebrations begin, and well-earned they are indeed. It might have looked simple at times, but as any racing driver will tell you, competing at this level at the very top is anything but simple. There's no catching them now then. We have a new World Drivers' Champion. Victory today then, but bittersweet emotions, I'm sure, as the championship slips through their fingers. Even so, what a fantastic final race of the season this was. Well, Anthony Davidson, a resounding victory today, but what set them apart from the rest?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all. Let's have a look then at the driver's standings. And this also means there's no catching our leader anymore, and we crown a new World Drivers' Champion. So, Anthony Davidson, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
I have to give it to the Golden Boy.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. So then, Ferrari have now moved out of sight and out of reach. It's another triumph for the Italian team as they claim the World Constructors' Championship. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
And that was the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. A pretty dominant race on our part. Won the pole, drove away from the field, and ended up doing a unique strategy where I did soft, medium, medium. Because I saw that the strategy was medium, hard. And I was going to do that, but then realized midway through the race, well, maybe if I do medium, medium, soft, I could probably get away with that. And as it turns out, it worked out that way in our favor, and we got the win. Had to come through the front two on the safety car restart, which I actually want to take a look and see what happened there. I think it was involving Ocon, I'm not sure. Ooh, excuse me. I know that Stroll DNF'd out of the race with some sort of engine problem. I think it was something involving Ocon that brought out the safety car. See if I'm right here. Well, actually, it was something ahead of them. It was actually one of the Alfa Romeos, Zhou Guan Yu, who was having a pretty solid run. In P12, coming through the hotel section, just loses control, spins out. Hamilton hits him. One of the Haas cars tries to sneak through, and it just becomes a logjam in the hotel section. There's cars driving through, game trying to figure out what the heck's going on there. But that's what happened to Zhou. And that led to a bunch of the guys behind here getting a lap down, being trapped by the safety car. And then the big incident of the race, I was trying to make my way through the field, and I made contact with Max Verstappen that got him wing damage, and he had to pit. And then I think not long after he pitted, he had some sort of engine failure. So everything really came apart for Verstappen there at the end of the race. Contact with me as I was trying to make my way through the field, and then an engine failure right at the very end, crushing for his hopes at a three-peat. But that meant that the championship came down to Leclerc and Russell, and in the end, George Russell finished ahead of Charles Leclerc to capture the World Championship. When we take a look at the final standings, the constructor standings, Ferrari, as I suspected they would, held on to claim the Constructors' Championship. Both of their cars scored points, whereas Red Bull and Mercedes only had one car each in the points, so a pretty easy Constructors' title for Ferrari. But then in the driver's standings, it came down to the end, and George Russell wins the World Championship by just 2 points over Charles Leclerc. Yeah, it was really Russell. I'll have to look at the results again, but Russell had a real late surge in the season. I think he only got 2 wins when it was all said and done, but he had consistent running throughout pretty much the entire season, and then he came on hot at the end, and that's what sealed it for him. 2 points ahead of Leclerc. Again, whoever got that position would have won the championship, and it went to Russell. Leclerc second, Verstappen, despite the DNF at the end, finishes in third, only 10 points out. Carlos Sainz 13 points out, and Sergio Perez 21 points out. Hamilton finishes 35 points out. And that victory for us was crucial because we did overtake Lando Norris. We overtook Fernando Alonso in the driver's standings, but unfortunately we were not able to catch Aston Martin in the constructors. 6 points back, P6, which still is a very respectable result in our first season. And then 8th in the drivers. So, at the end of the day, Carlos Sainz was not able to overcome his starting position. And then, it was battle to the end, and Verstappen just had everything fall apart there in the very end of the race. And yes, incredible job by George Russell, has to be said. And there you go. That was the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And my win means that this season had 10 different winners, which is the sole, I think coming in, there were 9 different winners, which was tied for the second most ever in a Formula 1 season. So now with 10 wins, with 10 different drivers, that means that this season takes sole possession of second place, which is stunning, honestly. But there you go. That was the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I feel like that win there is going to be ominous. Or maybe not ominous is the right word, but it will tell a tale of what the future holds, hopefully, in upcoming seasons. Take the money we got from the sponsors. Dragovich did a fine job, all things considered. I had someone else in mind for my Season 2 teammate. And the person who will probably be my teammate for the remainder of the career mode, I think. But I'll hold on that for now. What a season. So, I do want to take a look at George Russell and his season results. Yeah, it's weird because Russell, for a long time, he really felt like he was out of it for a good chunk of the championship. Like, he was always hanging around. You know, he was always there or thereabouts. But he never felt like a true title contender until really the last third of the season. I mean, he had one podium. Well, I guess you could say the second half of the season, because he did have one podium in Saudi Arabia, and that was really it. I mean, he was racking up fifths mostly, eighths. He had one 10th place finish in the British Grand Prix. And then really it was after Great Britain that he really started to turn it on. He had 2 consecutive second place finishes, and then an 8th and the 5th at the Netherlands in Monza, at Zandvoort at Monza. So back to his usual form. And then really it was the run, I think, from Singapore through Mexico that really put him in position. Obviously he had 2, but he also had 3 podiums, a third and 2 seconds. And then you look at his competition, his closest competition in those other races. Leclerc did get one win from, and I'm talking specifically the 5-race stretch from Singapore through Mexico, basically. Leclerc did have one win, but then you had a 4th and 8th, a DNF, and an 11th. Verstappen, he had an 8th, a 3rd, a 6th, a 12th, and an 8th. Carlos Sainz had a couple second place finishes, a 5th, a 10th, and a 7th. Sergio Perez had, let's see, a 4th, a 5th, a 4th, a 2nd, and a DNF. And then Hamilton had 2 12th place finishes, a win, a 7th, and a 6th. So really, it was that last stretch of the season, in particular, that 5-race stretch when they were in Asia, and then Qatar, and then the U.S. Grand Prix, and then the Mexican Grand Prix. I think it was really that stretch that really put Russell back in contention for the championship. I mean, I'll have to look back at the previous races, but he was like 40, 50 points out or something like that, and it was really those races and those performances that really put Russell in position. Honestly, Brazil, he had to deal with the grid penalty, wasn't able to come back to get points. But his other closest rivals weren't able to score top marks either, and really, one has to wonder what would have happened. I think back to Brazil, where not Carlos Sainz, where Charles Leclerc was battling with Pierre Gasly for the win of that race. And if Leclerc had won that race, then he would have won the championship by 5 points over George Russell. So in terms of Leclerc, that was a big moment for him because he had a rough stretch between Qatar and Austin and Mexico. where he, I think it was really that 4th, 8th DNF and 11th stretch that really killed him. But he was able to bring it back, but not close enough to capture the title. Verstappen, he was in it at the last race, but he just had results in that 5-race portion that I mentioned that just didn't stack up compared to everyone else. And as far as George Russell is concerned, don't forget too, he probably should have won Singapore if he had not had that spin in the middle of the race. He got third, but he should have won that race. So had Russell won that race, he probably would have been in an even better position for the championship going into the final race. And Carlos Sainz, sort of similar to Verstappen, he just sort of had a fall off in performance right when it just right when it counted. Because he had and I'm having trouble talking here. I don't know why, but Carlos Sainz was on a real tear. I'm just looking at this now from basically right at the start of the summer break through the return from the summer break, aside from that 14th place finish in Italy, where I believe he had a spin. Yes, he did have a spin. Another moment, if Sainz didn't have that spin in Italy at Monza, where he spun off at the first chicane, he would have been more in this championship fight too come the end of the season. Because he had that string first, second, 14th, and then second. So right at the end of the summer, he was really on fire. But then that momentum sort of swinged at the same time towards George Russell. And I'd have to do the calculations, but I would say I would just look at the results. I would have to think that Russell had the best average finish outside of, I guess, Sergio Perez, because Perez actually, he had a very strong run to end the season as well, because if you look at his results from Belgium through the end of the year, he was actually on fire. So Perez is on fire as well. Third, fourth, a first, a fourth, a fifth, a fourth, a second, a DNF, a third, and a fourth, and a fourth. He was, aside from that DNF in Mexico, his worst finish in those final 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The last half of the season, his worst finish was 5th. So Perez was really doing well. I guess it was just the fact that earlier in the season, he just had not that many super strong points finishes. I mean, I see a couple 7th places. I see an 8th place. I see a Canada. He finished 19th. But yeah, Perez and Russell were really strong at the end of the season. I guess in Perez's case, he was not able to score points as consistently as Russell. Well, I mean, they were both scoring points, but I guess Perez wasn't scoring high enough finishes compared to Russell. For the most part. Especially early in the season, because he had Russell banging out 4ths and 5ths. Well, Perez had, he had a win, and he had 2 podiums, but then he also had a bunch of 6th, or 3 podiums, I should say, early. But then he also had a bunch of 6th and 7th place finishes. So, I guess that's why, despite his strong run at the end, Perez just didn't have the points to get there. And again, the engine failure in Mexico could have changed things. I don't know. And Lewis Hamilton, oh boy, he just had... At one point in the middle of the season, Lewis Hamilton had the championship lead. And right at the end of the season, it just... Aside from the win in Qatar, it pretty much collapsed for him. Um, 2 12th place finishes where he just didn't run well, to my knowledge. Engine penalties may have had something to do with that, but and in the Singapore case, the pit stop situation. But yeah, outside of the win in Qatar, Hamilton's best finish in that final stretch was 7th, which is rough. Things just it literally just fell apart for Lewis there at the end of the season. So yeah, so again, George Russell pretty consistent throughout the season. Only had 2 finishes outside the points. And just came on strong pretty much from Singapore onward. And that's what sealed the championship for him at the end of the day. Leclerc, despite the fact that he only had 2 wins, and Russell did as well, he only had 2 wins. He was consistent all year long. Only had 1 finish outside the points going into the final stretch. Had a really rough go of it from Qatar to Mexico, but was able to come back and salvage a 2nd place finish and nearly won the championship. Verstappen was a contender all the way as well, but his season, I don't want to say fell apart near the end, but especially compared to Hamilton, but by his standards, his season kind of fell off the rails a little bit after Qatar, a 6th place finish onward, and it was just he just couldn't get the podiums and the higher points finishes to get back to the top. Carlos Sainz was really strong right at the start of the summer break. Actually, to go back, he had those 2 wins in a row, Monaco and Spain. And then from Belgium through Qatar, he just had a really strong run of form. And then starting in Austin, he just couldn't get the results. I mean, you look at, that stretch from Hungary to Qatar, and then look at the rest of the season, and the form didn't match up. So he definitely fell off going into that last 5-race stretch. Perez was just as consistent as George Russell at the final stretch of the season, which played a big role in him being involved mathematically in the title fight. But the DNF in Mexico really killed him, and I guess what also killed him is the fact that he was not as consistent at scoring higher end points as George was. And that's what hurt him. And then Hamilton again, middle of the season, he was on incredible form, but the last half of the season was a total collapse aside from Qatar. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Thank you for watching the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and the next video will be the prologue for Season 2, where I set everything up and get ready to go. Maybe some schedule changes. I'm sure we'll see some different driver changes potentially. And yeah, we'll see where things go from there.